Okay, so the answer is we could do this in two different ways, and it's really up to the Mishtatfim what they prefer. Do we prefer to stel zich on one detail of the Maimer and get into it, or do we prefer more of a general synopsis on the Hemshech Inyanim of the Maimer to try and get where the Maimer is going?
I think a general synopsis, because the Maimer seems to have a single nekuda that it's trying to bring out, which I'm still trying to figure out what that nekuda is.
Right. Okay. So let's do it like that. Yeah, all right. So that will be it's just because we're dealing with a lot of heavy things in the Maimer, so there will be a lot of loose ends in the end. But what we want to do is basically just get what's the overarching theme, what's the message of the Maimer. So let's begin with just a few points which need clarification, and then we'll get into it. The Rabbi begins with a question in the beginning of its Siv base in this Hanocha. The question is, what is it that there is the Oitzer HaMelech? The Melech has Oitzeres, has treasures, which he doesn't give out, even for his own tzrachim, for his own uses. Now, after if he comes to a situation where in battle, then he's going to use his oitzer. So the question of the Rebbe is, what does it mean that the Melech has a oitzer, which he's not using? What does it mean that he has tzrachim? That's the first question. What does it mean that he has tzrachim, which is like, for some reason, those tzrachim are not good enough for him to waste his oitzer, but there's something deeper which does necessitate the oitzer. In other words, what's bothering the Rebbe is the very concept that the Eibishter has tzrachim, has needs. And then there's a deeper thing which is higher than those needs. So he wants clarification in that. So the problem is that this is a question, but he just leaves it off. It doesn't really come back to answering it. So somehow or another, the theme of this Maimer is supposed to be settling that problem. So that's just one thing. Then there's the actual Maimer beginning in Siv Gimel, where the Rebbe goes into the difference between the way it is with Mitzad Atzmei and what happens when the is a Keli for Moir. And possesses in it not just that he's Blikvul, that he's Ein Le'Seif, but he also has the quality of Ein Le'Tchila. The mile of Ein Le'Tchila is that it's Atzmi. Meaning, by definition, Ein Seif is something which you could have Nivraim, which are Ein Seif. You could have many things which are Ein Seif. It's endless. It's infinity. But the musag of Ein Seif in Alakus comes from the Ein Seif of Atzmus. And Ad Kedei Kach, that has the Indian for Atzmus, that even has the Ein Le'Tchila, which obviously could only be in Atzmus itself, because only Atzmus is something which is not called Me'ah Heder, which is not something which didn't exist and then began to exist for some reason. Fine. That's the part over here. And the way the Rabbi explains it is that there's a Keich of Yesh Me'ayin in the even though the itself is not Mitziusim Atzmusei, still he has the Keich of Mitziusim Atzmusei in there. Fine. This is the Vart. The Rebbe continues how this idea you could see in Lifnei HaTzimtzum in Sfiras Ein Ketz, in La'acher HaTzimtzum in the way it's in Sfiras Ta'atzilus, and then even in Nivraim you see the Chazakim Kiyem Hibarim. you see how in the Nivroim you have the Bligvul of the Nivra. So it's clear that the Rebbe is doing something over here which is not the regular Havana in the Maimer. The way I would understand the Maimer in the Pashtos, in Bosi Legani Tovshin Yud, over there is discussing that the Eir is Lamata Adin Tachlis, the Eir reaches everywhere. But he's not talking about that the Eir has in it the Ein Leitchila. That's something new that the Rebbe is doing this year. So we have to clarify what's the point and how do we get there. That's the second thing. So first of all, we began with what's the question? What's the question of the Eitzer? What's bothering the Rebbe and how's the Maimer going to answer it? And then what's the point of this Maimer that it's has in it, the Eir has in it also the Ein Leitchila, the Keich. Then, finally, towards the end of the Maimer, the Rebbe begins the way it is in Aveda. How does this work in Aveda? That the idea of Shabbos, which is Tainuk, and which is Menucha, and in order to understand how Menucha could work together with the Vart of the Magid, of being ayin, of changing the world to ayin. So let's just clarify that. There's a word of the Baal Shem Tov that the Nekuda of Aveda is Menucha, Shabbos. There's a word of the Magid which says that the idea of Aveda is to turn from Yesh to Ayin. So somehow the Rebbe is bothered, but these two things don't work together well. But through the word of this Maimer, turning Yesh into Ayin and the idea of Menucha will work together. They can synchronize. This is going to be how our Maimer works. So again, the question is how? What was the problem, and how's our Maimer the solution? Where are we going with this? Okay, so those are 3 points which hopefully we're going to be able to deal with as we go through this Maimer. So far, so good. Reb Shalom. Yeah, you're on mute.
Yeah, okay. So that's the structure a bit, but there seems to be a nekuda, as you said yourself, a nekuda that runs through the entire Maimer that the Rebbe is trying to explain. Correct? That this idea of
right, so we haven't gotten there yet. This is just Agdam. Yeah. Okay. So the question is, what's the nekuda of the Maimer? And once we get the Nukuda, then we could work our way backwards and start dealing with different details as much as we'll be able to get. So let's begin with right at the end of Sif Aleph. There's a very interesting line, which a lot of people have noticed this year, and it's clearly something new. The Rebbe is deviating from the original idea, the way it's in Bosi Legani Tovshin Yud, and he's adding in a new line. It says like this, that we have the Eibishter gives the Eitzres, and generally speaking, with Lolos, him Eitzres stumim, aber HaKavone hi dafke lefteich eisam. These Eitzres have to be opened, v'achar kach los es eisam ela makablim, v'anesina tia be'efen de tzorcha hatev lonu tiftach. The way this has to be given to us is an eifan of tzorcha hatev lonu. Hainu sha'makabel yargish zeu tev shalei. B'yachdim ha'yesi nimshach meitzres astum shemalamai. The idea over here is that the Yid should feel that the Eitzer is good and it's his good. Like the Bavuste Wort, instead of reading Eitzorcha Hatev Lonu Tiftach, we read Eitzorcha Hatev Lonu Tiftach, that it's our good. Now, this line, or this knech, that it's Hatev Lonu, that it's the Eitzer is going to be revealed good, is a Chiddush which the Rabbi is saying over here in Tavshin Chav Beis, which is not in the original Tavshin Yud. And not only is it not in the original, it actually goes against the grain of everything Tavshin Yud wants to say. We're making a revolution in this line. Why? So let's first get clear what's the point of the Maimer, the original Bosi the Klyne Tafshin Yud, and then we'll have an appreciation of what the Rebbe is doing over here. The Nekuda in Tafshin Yud is like this. Every Yid has a kayach, a oitzer in Aved. How does this oitzer work? So the oitzer, by definition, is in helam ha'atzim. It's be'etzem sosum v'nelam. It's closed. Meaning to say, just like in a person, there's keichzai gluyim, which is his meichin, his midas. You could have higher than that. You could have like his pshitas hanefesh, the rotzen of the person is nisgale. You could have a ava blikvul. You could have a simcha. You could have things which are lamayla mitavadas. But that's all what we call gilui. It could be a gilui blikvul, but it's still always going to be something which could be appreciated. We could speak about it in our terms. In fact, the very fact that we're going to say it's something which we don't understand is in itself, in our words, like the greatest compliment. That you're going to walk out with more of a derech, it's more of appreciation for this blikvul. It's like beyond our hagbalas. Because it's so reich and it's so powerful, it's more powerful than something which we could contain. But then there's a deeper place in the person, which is deeper than blikvul, and that is the I. And I, the very etzem of the person, is not blikvul, he just is. He just is. And that can also not be measured in being rich or endless. It just is. Like the moment a person is born, he just exists. He does exist and does not exist. That's the etzem of life. Likewise, kaviochel, we say l'mayla. There is the way the Eibishter comes into gvul. The Eibishter runs the world and is mashpia on the world. Then there is the Eibishter, the way is believable. Sever kol almin. There's Eir in Sof, and there's a whole arichis in the Maimer that the Eir in Sof l'mayla is l'mata adin tachlis. And that goes through a few prakim in Tafshin Yud explaining by arichis gedela the l'mata adin tachlis. And the idea of l'mata adin tachlis is that Eir reaches everywhere and it comes into every level. And it remains bli gvul, even though he's coming into gvul. That's the idea of Eir. However, he says in Tafshin Yud, that's not the etzem. The Eitzer Elyon is higher than Lamat Adin Tachlis. The Eitzer Elyon is the etzem. Etzem Eir. And that is be'etzem behelam. And that's impossible to be revealed by definition. This Eitzer Elyon is what the Eibishter gives every Yid. What does it mean he gives it to him? If it's not revealed, in what way is he getting it? So the answer is that he's getting it in a Aveda of a Atzmistik Aveda. He's going to be working in a Eifen of Netzach. How the Yid is not going to appreciate. He's not going to celebrate his Yiddishkeit. He's just going to be. He's going to be so strong in his Yiddishkeit. It's not shaykh otherwise. And that's it. And that's the power of going out to battle. When the soldier goes out to battle, the consistency, the tenacity, the never changing, not giving in, standing up to all conditions, doesn't come from an appreciation or some kind of dereh. It just, he is so strong, he just is. So on the one hand, it's the lowest of all the keiches, but he comes from this place of etzem. This is the point in Tafshin Yud. So the Eitzer Elyon is closed, is helam, and that's the whole arichis, And this Hellendige thing is what's coming down Lamata, that this person also holds a nation of Helen. And the fact that you have a Yid who in Golus or in a personal Golus who doesn't understand anything and still sticks it through, continues, perseveres, that's from Netzach. That comes from the Eitzar. It's a gift which is being given. Fine. So Lefize, the whole point of saying that the Eibishter is Lamata Adin Tachlis, there's the Ein Sof, which is Lamata Adin Tachlis, is all a way of bringing out what the Eitzar is not. In the Hemshech Tovshin Yud, there's a whole arichas about Lamata Adin Tachlis. And he's saying the Eitzar Elyon is not Lamata Adin Tachlis. He's not Gilu Bligvul. The Eitzar Elyon is higher than Gilu. He's Behelen. It's Lamayla Adin Kates. Lamayla Adin Kates means that he becomes Mis'alam Ba'atzmusa. He is Be'etzem removed. And he's not Begeder Gilu. That's the Eitzar. Comes the Rebbe over here in Maimer and says that this Eitzar Elyon is going to be Hatev Lanu, is going to be appreciated. It's going against everything the Maimer Tovshin Yudis wants to say. We're doing over here something totally new.
Rabbi Klyne, what's Lamata Adin Tachlis? What's Lamata Adin Tachlis in the original?
In that the air is believable, and not just that air is believable, but air comes into every level of Gevul. So air will come into Spheres, air will even come into Nivroim. You will find air everywhere. The bligvul could be the chazakim kemi baram, so you could have the bligvul in the Nivroim. That's Lamata Adin Tachlis coming into every place. Lamayla Adin Kates is the way he's removed, he's impossible to be in his garden. And that's the Eitzar.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So over here, the Rebbe is like taking a whole new day. It's confusing. Now, we'll see that this is we're not just nitpicking on one line. This is clearly a Yesod, which the Rebbe is taking a new direction in understanding Lamata Adin Tachlis. And this is going to be running like a silver thread throughout the Maimer, explaining how the Eira Bligvul, the idea of Lamata Adin Tachlis, is not only the way it is in Tovshin Yud, as a Hakdama to explain what Eitzar Elyon is not. But the Rebbe is going to be saying that the Lamata Adin Tachlis is another way of bringing out the Bligvul of the Eibush, of the bringing out the Eitzar Elyon. And it's necessary to have Lamata Adin Tachlis in order for the Eitzar Elyon to come to us properly. Okay. How is this? So, without getting stuck too much in the Gufa Maimer, but in the Maimer we say there's Eir and there's Etzem. So let's just make it clear what's the difference between Eir or Bligvul or Ein Seif and Ein Leitchil. We have in our world a concept of Teichen. Everything we take could only be taken in a certain by how deep it is, how strong it is, how much is it telling. That's the things have weight. So I'm going to tell me that this house is a good house. So you're going to tell me why? For what's it useful for? Does it bring space? Does it bring beauty? Is it long lasting? What do you have to offer to give you validity? To give what do you have? Certainly, if we're talking in a ruchnistic thing, what's a svara? So a good svara is a svara that you can't say otherwise. A good svara is a svara that answers many kashas. The more this svara is solving, it's a broader svara. The deeper it's reaching in Haskalah, so that shows that as a depth. That's the way everything is measured. Now, generally speaking, this is the idea of Eir. Eir is Gilu. The more things are, so what do you mean I have more Eir? Eir is like the pshitas, the bligvul of this. It's that, obviously we take things in Eifin of Gvul, but let's say you would have richness or strength or bligvul, let's say what's Ein Sof? That's impossible to stop. It can't ever not be, because it's so strong. It can't. That's how Reich is. So that's how bligvul is in our language. So if you're going to ask a person, what's more, gvul or bligvul? Bligvul is more. Obviously, it's more. What exists more? What has a stronger existence? Of course, bligvul. That's Eir. Then there's a totally different kind of metzius, which is the concept of mechuyev metzius. Mechuyev metzius is that I be'etzem exist. Not for any reason. I don't stand for anything. I don't have any teichen. What does it mean that ein leitchila? Ein leitchila is not an historical fact that it's technically no point in time when I didn't begin to exist. Ein leitchila means I don't have any reason to be. Therefore, I can't ever not be. Whenever anything finishes, the reason is because whatever was causing he should be has run out. But ein leitchila means I just am. Just is. What? Nothing. That's something which we can't understand. Because any way we'll take something, it will always be with looking to have more of the derech eretz for it. Okay, so in what way are you great? What are you? But that's again going to be a compromised way of taking mechuyev metzius. Mechuyev metzius, he's not great. He just is. That's etzem. That's why the only dogma for mechuyev metzius, for metziusim atzmusay in our world is in Gashmis. What's Gashmis? So you could talk about the richness of the table, or the beauty, or the strength, or the size. Or then you could talk, he just is. He's here. I can't take him away. He's here. That is something which exists only in Gashmis. Just is. Before we talk what? The fact that he exists. That etzem ha-metzius is the metziusim ha'atzmusei, which we have in Gashmis. We say this is some kind of amchoshe. It's a way of giving us some kind of derher, what it means mechuyev metzius in atzmus. It just is. But the way he is not that is faran, meaning his way of existence isn't the way we understand existence. That he has to exist in some way. He doesn't need that. So he doesn't have any reason to be, meaning he doesn't stand for anything. So he can't stop being. If you don't start, you can't stop. That's ein leitchila. There's actually even a loshen b'negei atzmus as metziusei is not neider. Says in Eir we say that metziusei is neider but not muhusei. Or in atzmus we say even metziusei is not neider. Fragt sich the kasha, what do you mean that metziusei is not neider? We just spoke about him. I just said that he exists. So the answer is that what we're saying also we're taking wrong. If somebody after
what does it mean metziusi is not noiga?
Noida with the dalet. We don't know that he exists. But we don't know. I'm saying we're talking about it. What are we doing? You don't know that he exists. Whatever we know is not it. Because for us it's going to be impossible to take it without thinking about that it's great. V'haraya, after this whole drasha, if someone's going to ask you, no, so what's a bigger metzius? Atzmus or Eir? You say, for sure, Atzmus. So Ebaze, you got it wrong. Ebaze, the Shenish does, because we've already lost the plot. And it's impossible for us to climb out of this Metzius. So we could only know that we don't know. That's the only way to talk about this. But there is such a concept. Where only in Yemei Mashiach will there be such a musik of knowing it. Zeh. You know, the Mizak that there was Ibn Chacham, somebody came over to the Rebbe Rashab, and he said he has a question, a trick question for the Rebbe. He says that everything he hears, it says in Chassidus, everything has a makir l'mayla. You could find a source for everything in this world. So he said, what's the makir of apikursis? So he's going to be stuck now. He's going to say that Sadar makir, so Muzaina, that apikursis is legitimate. So the Rebbe said, what the makir of apikursis is, that it's true. Was sagt apikursis? As is nit faran. It's not true, as nit faran. What apikursis is saying is the most correct statement to say about the Eibishter. Is nit faran. What are you saying? He doesn't exist, like what you think existence means. Richtig. You don't need a makir, it's true. Meaning, Atzmos is something which there's no way to have any shaykhs to such a thing. That's the touch, ein lo tchil. He doesn't begin. Okay. This inyan, obviously by definition, can't be revealed. So the Rebbe comes in our Maimer and wants to argue that yes, Eir is going to reveal this. The Ein L'Tchila is going to exist in the Eir. And that's what we're going to see throughout the Eir, which we say that Eir is Lamata Adin Tachlis. In Tavshin Yud, we're describing Eir. Zok the Rebbe, really what's happening over here is that in this Eir there exists Atzmus. And this is all a Eir which is carrying the power of Atzmus, the Blikvul of Atzmus. Eir has Blikvul for itself? No. The real makir for Ein Seif comes from Atzmus. And the Rebbe proves it in various ways. You could see that the Eir creates Yesh Me'ayin. So obviously he possesses the power of Metzius and Atzmusay. So Eir has in it the Etzem. One of the ways to Ad Kedei Kach that we see is Chazachim Kiyem Mibarim. We see that our world, we see a Nitzchius or a Tmidius in the Teva. By definition, the way Teva is built is that it should fizzle out. It's impossible for something of Gvul to carry a Bli Gvul Keich. The Pashtus, a car which only has a certain size can't take gas Bli Gvul. He's only going to be able to carry as much as his tank allows. So any Nivra which is Mugbul and Mokim is only going to be able to have Chayis which is Mugbul. He can't have Chayis which is Bli Gvul. So if you're Mugbul and Mokim, you're going to have to be Mugbul and Zman. So the way the world should be is constantly receding. It should be that as every generation passes, so first of all, the physical world should be becoming shvacher. The world should be slowly disintegrating, should be disappearing. Like we see, Tinik Mishaneilat Mascheles Yabesh, a child from the second he's born, begins to die, so to speak. I mean, literally, if you take a 50-year-old person to the doctor, they'll tell you that there's so many years left to life. If you take a baby, they'll tell you there's more years. Because a person doesn't die suddenly. It's slowly, his goof is becoming older and is becoming schwacher. So that's the way the world should be. The fact is, though, that the world's kayam and beish. The world exists. It's not becoming schwacher. So there's obviously some kayach ein sof. Even more than that, we see that in the mean, you see that there's a blikvul. If everything is mugbul, so it should be becoming, every generation should be shvachim. The fact is that potentially, at least, every person could have deiris bligvul coming from him. Because my son is not smaller or less than me. So my son's son is also not going to be less or smaller. So there's no reason for it ever to stop. So every person has in him a keach bligvul. Not just a keich bligvul. I have a keich bligvul to create bligvul, because from me is going to come a son, and this son is also going to have a deiris bligvul from him, potentially. Technically, there'll never be a point where there's deiris bligvul, obviously, because at any point when you'll stop and count, there will be a certain number. But in Havana, there should never be any, and it should never end. It's endless. Kumtos, that alibe de emes, there's a bligvul in the bri. Sagt man that this bligvul must come from the air, and in other places in the Chelik Yudzayin, in the Tazriya Chedesh, the Rebbe touches is clearly, this comes from the Leishanisi of Atzmus. It comes from the fact that Atzmus doesn't change, and therefore in the Nivra we see the blig, that it doesn't change, the bligvul. That's the Chazachim Kemi Baruch. And likewise, without getting now involved in all the details of the Maimer, this is the overarching message of the Maimer, that the etzem is coming begolui in the air. Lefize, before we continue, any questions? Somebody wants to comment?
So what we're saying is, basically, the Rebbe is coming and saying here that anything that's bleak vul, the shurish of bleak vul is ein lo tchila.
Yeah.
You can't have bleak vul with a tchila. The only way you can have a bleak vul with a tchila is because you have within you the Eibishter, so to say, put into something that has a tchila, put in the characteristic of ein lo tchila.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's summarize now. Let's go back to how we started. We had this issue with what's the Eitzar Chahatev Lanu. What's this business that the Eitzer is becoming good in our revealed good? L'cheira adarabah, the Eitzer should remain closed, and that's the whole point of the Eitzer, that it's Helam Ha'atzmi, and it expresses itself in Netzach, which is the union of Helam. Which is not, he's the soldier. He doesn't have any derher or any havana in alakus. Zok der Rebbe, no. That's the way it is in Tavshin Yud. But in Tavshin Chav Beis, we take over here a turn. The idea of Lamata Adin Tachlis, what's the idea of Eir? Is not just to bring out as Hakdome, you should know that the Eitzer is higher than this. This is one of the ways that Eitzer is going to come. That the Eitzer is going to come in a revealed way. The idea of Eir is to bring the Ein Leitchila, that there's going to be a Keich HaEtzem in Eir. And therefore it's going to be a Eitzar Chatev Lanu. Our good. Now, just for clarity, this may sound like Epsa Teire, you mishtalt sich on Epsa line. But
Yossi, I'm sorry to go back a second. Would it be right to say that, this concept that the Rebbe brings out over here, that to have ein saif in something that has a tchila, we have to imbue into that element ein lo tchila, that normally we would have always understood it to be that the Eibishter granted this thing the power of Ein Saif, right? That the Eibishter gave them something that has a tchila. The Eibishter gave them the power of Ein Saif. Like the Eibishter endowed into human beings the power of Ein Saif to have a lada ad Ein Saif. Here the Rebbe is, this whole concept is l'chera chiddush, right? That to get to Ein Saif, no, we're not saying the Eibishter gave you Ein Saif. The Eibishter is actually imbuing imbuing them with the power of Ein Lo Tchila, right? It's a whole new concept. It means, so we're saying that the Eibishter is imbuing into them, like you say, the Kayacha Etzem itself. The Etzem itself is Ein Lo Tchila. So we're imbuing into these things the Kayacha Etzem of Ein Lo Tchila with Diktik in the fact that Ein Lo Saif. Would that be correct? What's happening here?
Yes. It's much more complex. We're trying to walk between the raindrops over here without getting stuck. Yeah, every word we say we get stuck. But really, there's two ideas over here which we're mixing in. Teacher, I don't think we should get involved in it. But I'll just say in one word that there's two ideas. There's the fact that Ein Sof, that gets his Ein Sof from Atzmus, and that's something which it says in Samach Vav. That's the word of the Rebbe Rashab. That the emissary concept of Ein Sof is Dafke in Atzmus. Kilo Neymar, the Ein Sof of is only a technical Ein Sof. It's like technically the Eibishter could make that won't finish, but that's not the real concept of Ein Sof. So the Musar of Ein Sof is where it says is Amitis Inyan Ein Sof he's getting from Atzmus. Then there's a new word that Atzmus gives him also in Leitchil. That's already a whole new word. So generally speaking, it's one idea that the Etzem is expressing itself in there. And this is the message of our Maimer. Now, what's very interesting is that there was a letter the day after the Maimer. Tavshin Chov Beis, Yud Aleph Shvat. I don't have it in front of me. Maybe if somebody could find it online, it's in Igris Chelek Chov Beis. You could probably find it online. Reb Sholem. I don't know how to do these things, but it's a fascinating letter. Ja, we Chelek Chov Beis.
I have one here. Chelek Chov Beis.
Chelek Chov Beis. So I believe it's I don't know the page number, but basically it goes to chronological order. So if you find the letter from Yud Aleph Shvat, Tavshin Chov Beis. Oh, Anash.org just shared the link, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, I've tried to find the page. Keep going. No
okay. Could you do a screen share? How does it work?
We'll find it just.
Yes, Moshe. That's you. Oh, there's a.
I have her page Kuf Yutes.
Right. Well, there's a few letters. There's also Kuf Chav Aleph, Kuf Chav Beis. There's a few letters. Probably this one. Huh?
Page.
Ramesha, a computer technician, you should be able to know how to do screen share.
I'm here with the big expert. I'm the Katam Chavura. Kuf Yutes?
There's one of them.
Okay, what do you want me to screen share? Share screen. The host disable participant screen sharing.
What do I do? Hold on.
I don't remember.
Now you're asking me to do something. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Try now.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. So you
okay. So just one page earlier. Could we go just So look at the. I'm just going to read out the words.
I can do that also. Don't do that. To be fair, don't just read the words.
Yeah. So the Rebbe says over here, and it's just sometimes you read the Maimer and you're not sure if Taka the Rebbe is saying it's a major chiddush over here. That the idea of Ein Sof Lamata Dein Tachlis is in the Ein Sof is going to be the Eitzer Elyon. But Pashtus, the Eitzer Elyon is not in the Ein Sof Lamata Dein Tachlis. Stafke in the Lamaila Den Kates, in the Etzem. That's the way it's in Tavshin Yud. but the Rebbe is doing over here that in the Ein Sof get Nizgala während der Eitzer. So let's read the Lashon. Yehiratzen, Shas Cholos V'reish Perek Shnei Moshe Shalhem Shech Bosi Legani, Yizgala Ein Sof Lamata Adin Tachlis, Ubaze Yizgala Gam Ken Eitzer de Lamayim. It says it clearly. Now, if we could go to the next page, it finishes off that this the Abish gives through the Sareh Pkidei Achayil. V'hihi kol ze b'teva nirva niklek mishikosu yiftach havay lechos yitzarei atev. Hakasha yitzarech atev lo notiftach. So it's clearly saying that in the air is going to be nizgala the etzem, meaning in the tchil, in the lemata mata adin tachlis, we're going to have the Israelian, and this is the pashto. This is the point of our mind. Okay. What's even more interesting is that before Yud Shvat, the Rebbe would always send a telegram. So there's the lotion of the telegram. It's printed in the kavitz in the Bosi Legani from Lahak. This kavitz. He uses the lotion. His svadus peila or lenatzel kideboyi ha'eitzres tevim shemevazvezim lo. You should take advantage, use properly the good eitzres that are being squandered on us. This lashon eitzres tevim is not a lashon of chassidus. In Tafshin Yud, there's no such thing as eitzres tevim. There's the Eitzer Elyon, there's the Eitzer Hamelech, there's the Eitzer Akomus. Good Eitzeres, nicht da Zazach. So it's clear that the Rebbe already before Yud Shvat, as a Hagdama, you gave already a taste, a sneak peek of the Maimer. What's going to be happening in Toshech of Beis is that it's going to be good Eitzeres. The whole word of this Maimer is as the Etzem is going to be Begol. Okay, so let's now just go to see the words of the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid, and then we'll wrap it up. The Baal Shem Tov says that the whole idea of Aveda is Menucha. What's Pshat Menucha? So maybe Behektim, let's ask a simple question, a klot question. We know that a person could work hard the whole day, and he could feel fatigue, could feel tired. So he goes to sleep, and he wakes up rejuvenated.
Yossi, I'm going to interrupt you a second. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No problem.
This whole point that you want to say, that the Eitzer, this whole point of Eitzer Hartayv, but isn't that pshat that he opens up to B'kidei Achayil, that doesn't pshat the Maimer?
100%.
Okay, so what's the chiddush then that the Rebbe is saying that Eitzar Chatev Lanu?
No, but Pashto says that he's just giving it to Anshe Chayil, but it remains be'etzem a sosum thing. Meaning, we'll come back to it. I hear what you're saying. We'll come back to it when we wrap up. Okay, so we're holding over here by menucha. What's the idea of menucha, of rest? So you see, a person goes to sleep and he wakes up with no keiches. So the klotz kasha that every child has to ask is, where did these new keiches come from? Maybe a person is hungry and he eats, so there was vitamins, there's something in the food which I didn't have, and I filled up my tank. When it's like my car ran out of gas, you fill it up and now it could drive. I didn't have kayach, I went to see, where did I go? What did I just get? So what's the answer? Is that obviously a person be'etzem, his etzem hanefesh is alive and never gets tired. There's no such thing as the etzem being tired. The etzem is be'etzem alive. Norvos. Once a person wakes up, so his nefesh is kilu neimar sending keiches to the guf. And then it slowly distances itself from the etzem nefesh, from the etzem achai. B'meila, he becomes tired. Tired means disconnected from I. What's taich menucha? Rest. is that I am coming back to myself. I'm returning to my etzem. This is the idea of rest. In like you say in English, a person rests. He says, I come to. Ich bin zurückgekommen zu sich. I came back to myself. Because that's the truth. You just reconnected to my etzem, and that is the chai. So in conceptually, the idea of menucha is the way a person could experience his etzem. Now, b'zeh gufa, there's obviously madregas. So you could have when a person feels his menucha, which is like the second he sits down to feel menucha, and then there's the etzem in menucha, which is like when he doesn't even feel it, when he's just so connected to himself, to his etzem, that he just is. Like we discussed, what's the idea of etzem is that it's inexperienceable by definition. You know, actually the Rebbe once spoke about it. It's the same idea of menucha is very similar as tainug. Both are concept of Shabbos. Shabbos is tainug, menucha, it's connecting to the etzem. So in tainug also, you could have tainug murgish, you could have tainug bilti murgish. So even though nobody obviously ever experienced tainug bilti murgish because it's not murgish, it's not experienceable. But conceptually, I can understand that there must be such a thing. Because the point of tainug is to be I. The fact that it's murgish is obviously coming because there's friction with something other than I. I am leaving the out of I to get back into I, and that's the pleasure of the transition to connect to myself. A person which is be'etzem connected to himself, there's nothing to experience. He just is. But obviously that's the real tainug. Because that's pure tainug. That's tainug which is not being set against something else in order to experience it. It just is. So it's a theoretical concept. You have to be on that madrega to be so connected to myself, just to be. It's like saying, what's more pleasurable? The first moment of falling asleep, or like deep into your sleep? So obviously, deep intimate sleep, that's the real sleep. The problem is that nobody ever is around to talk about it because I can't experience that. The pleasure is the falling asleep. You know, or like you say, what's the geschmack of going on vacation? The first day or a week into vacation? A week into vacation, you forgot that you're on vacation. Even though obviously that's the real vacation. It's like you're forgetting you're on vacation. The first day is when you could sink into the couch and you just feel how that rega, the transition is the chitzonius of menucha. That is the way I could begin to experience menucha. But that itself is the problem because it's obviously not the menucha, the pure menucha. Yeah, we get the concept. Actually, the Rebbe once said that that's the difference between Friday night and Shabbos day. Shabbos day is the embassy union of tainug, of atik. That's what we say to the Shabbos to the Dahisu does the atika kadisha. Atik is Shabbos by day. Friday night it's chakal tapuchin kadishin. It's the aliyah sa'ilumis. So the Rebbe said, even though Shabbos day is a higher level of tainug, but he said, Fanoshim kerkeinu, Friday night is mugishmak. Because we're not on the level to be connected to be'etzem being in tainug. We could only experience the transition from the week to Shabbos.
There's bookshelves for this as well, no?
What?
There also spoke about that there's a third level Shabbos, like a third level Shabbos day.
Shabbos afternoon.
That's yeah. Shabbos.
Right.
At echad.
Yeah. Good. Das ist schon mamish der Etzem. So, for Al Kopanim, what's the point over here? Is that Shabbos is the idea of menucha, connecting to Etzem. And that's the point of Aved, that Yid should connect to Etzem.
So complete this point, that initial element, what does that show? Complete that point. Complete that point that the beginning of it has an element. Complete that thought, please.
What do you mean the beginning? I'm not following.
You were bringing out the point that the beginning of something, even though it's not the tachlis, that's the point that we can experience. So finish bringing out that point.
Yeah. So what we're saying is that that from this inyan menucha, from a chitzonistic menucha, I could understand in Havana that be'etzem, the direction we're going to, is where's going to be real menucha is Shabbos menucha l'chei elamim, the real menucha. Even though at that point there will be nothing to experience, so we could only see things in Giluyim dikayifana. Aber ich verstehe von dem, als da Dinge von Etzem. And this, says the Baal Shem Tov, is the whole Aveda. The whole Aveda is to come to this point of Shabbos, of Menucha. This is what we were looking to do. We want to get here. Fine. What's the problem? The Maggid said L'cheire a totally different word. He says the whole point of Aveda is to turn the world from Yesh to Ein. To take Gashmis and make it Ruchnis. What's Ein? Ein is not Etzem. Ein is Ruchnis. Ein is to bring in the Blik Vul into the Bria, to show, to Bepashtos, you take a Chayfetz Gashmi, and to use it for Kedusha, is you just brought out that Klyne, you brought out his Matara, his Nitzitz Kedusha, you're bringing out a Gili of Alakus in the world. That's Ein. Ein is never Etzem. So L'cheire we have a stira. What's the point of Aveda? Ein or Etzem? Zogt der Rebbe, Lefi our Maimer, that's understood. Because in our Maimer, the air carries the Etzem. It's taka Ein. Aber Ein tragt in sich echt Etzem. So it's not stira to say that Aveda is turning from Yesh to Ein, and at the same time saying that what's in Ein is Tainuk, is Menucha, is the Etzem. So that's the point at the end of the Maimer, how these two ideas of Etzem and Eir are not stira to each other. Because Adarabah, the whole word of our Maimer is Hatev Lanu Tiftach. As a Taka Eitzer, se de Etzem, aber so kommt Eretz in Gilu. Let's just now.
What would be the Maggid's Chiddush then?
What?
What would be the Maggid's Chiddush adding to the Baal Shem Tov then?
Because we're saying that it comes into Eir. That's a very big Chiddush. To say that this comes into Eir is a palette. To say that says Zach Eir is Ein Zach. To say that the Etzem is carried in Eir, that's the Ufta of the Maggid over here, and in our context, that's going to be the Ufta of our Maimer. That's the direction that we want to go. Yeah. So let's just finish off the original question of the Maimer. What was the kasha of the Maimer? What's it mean that there's Tzarchei HaMelech, and what's it mean that there's higher than Tzarchei HaMelech? So what's bothering the Rebbe that there's Tzarchei HaMelech? So picking up on this theme of Etzem, what is a Melech? In what way is a Melech different to all other humans? A normal person is built in a way that he has his seichel, he has his midas, he has his needs. Now, he obviously also has the etzem, which very rarely comes out. So in his normal relationships, when I communicate with another person, I'm not. It's not just raw, pure I. It's you and me. We're communicating. There's what I want. There's what you want. And by definition, my midas give room for you. That's what midas are. My seichel gives space for you. He's looking to understand you. If you're going to trigger, if you're going to somehow touch the etzem, then I'll come out and even there's nothing else. And at this point, there's no space for anything else in the world, because the only thing is, let's say, if you touch, you touch my child. So at that point, taka, it will be, there's no room, there's no space for anything. But before that, I mean, on a day-to-day basis, he's a normal person. He relates with others and he gives space to others. However, the Melech, he's a person that his etzem is begoli the whole time. So there's never any space for anything else. What's this business that the Melech, man de mochve b'moche kame malke? Why? Because the Melech fills the room constantly. His etzem is begoli. So just like in a moment when my etzem is begoli, there's no space for you. But the Melech, that's how he lives. So even though the Seichel and Midas, it's not really that. He never shares his opinion. It's always a command, by definition. Because I said, therefore, if there's any tnu over here of not me, which is so you have missing. Because he doesn't relate to anything besides for himself. That is the concept of a melech. So be'etzem, every person has this. Every person is a atzmi. But you don't live like that. That's why I would say that the melech shouldn't really have tzrachim. Shouldn't need anything else. The concept of needing something means that there's another thing over here which I am missing, which is outside of me. The etzem is sholem. The etzem is just I. It can't be that I need anything. So the mela melech lamata. Okay, so he's also, besides for being a melech, he also there's a human side to him. But the concept of a melech lamayla, meaning by the Eibishter in Ein Sof, so there's something else besides for him. What's it mean that he has tzrochim, which is not I? Wherever he is, it's just I. L'chayre. So the answer is going to have to be that there is a musig of Eir. Besides for Etzem, there's a concept of Eir. Und in der Eir liegt der Etzem. This is where we want to get to. Says the thread of our mimer, there's allowed to be such a musik of Eir, and the Eir itself carries that. The MSC is, like Rabbi Reichik was saying before, that l'chayre, this is also umeduyek in the mimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe, because the Frierdiker Rebbe be'etzem also uses the lashon opening the Eitzer. He says always that when he describes what's going to happen with the Eitzer, he doesn't just talk about delivering the Eitzer. He says the Psari Apkidim and Apkidei Achayil are going to open the Eitzer and give it to the Anshe Chayil. What's this business of opening it? It's l'chayre. I mean, certainly once we understand looking at the Eitzer in such a way that the etzem could be something that we could celebrate and appreciate, that's the touch opening it. Maybe let's just add one word. Till now we've been describing what's supposed to happen with the Eitzer, but who does it? So in the mashal of the Frierdiker Rebbe, there's three things over here. There's the Melech, there's the Anshe Chayil, and in between them there's Sarei Achayil or Pkidei Achayil. There's the commanders. And they are given the Eitzer, and it's their job to open the Eitzer and deliver it to the Anshe Chayil. Who are these Pkidei Achayil? So the Rebbe touched those. That's the Rabbi. This is what the Rebbe does. The job of the Rebbe is to take the etzem and to make it a golitiker etzem, to make it something which could be appreciated. In Pashte Werte, says do the etzem, but without the Rebbe, it would be good. A Yid hat etzem, sicher hat a Yid etzem. Netzach v'heit, Erfolg, steht stark. But in order to be able to talk about that and to appreciate what we have, that's in other words, it should be an Eitzer which we could talk about and understand. Of them is the Pkidei Achayil. Where and when do the Pkidei Achayil do it? In this Maimer Gufa. This is what the Rebbe just did. The Rebbe just opened the Eitzer. Spent a whole Maimer talking about the very fact that we could talk about the Etzem is the Pella of Chassidus. This is what the Rebbe does. By definition, Etzem should be something which is not up for discussion. There's nothing to talk about, it just is. Is gekommen the Rebbe and says, no, the Pkidei Achai are going to open the Eitzer for us. We're going to be able to dance and fabreng and learn and discuss Etzem. To live with the Etzem. It's going to be a tzorch al-tev long. Let's just finish with one more nekuda, fascinating word. Is
Klyne, can you repeat again? So, what is the answer to the question that the Rebbe asked? What is Tzarchei HaMelech?
The L'cheira, what we're saying over here is that there is room for an union of Gilui Ein. No, L'cheira mitzad Sizdo Lamata Adin Tachlis. Yeah. So that's in the Moshel, that's the Tzarchei HaMelech. And we say that that's not the Eitzer. That's the way the Friedrich Rebbe describes it. Zogt the Rebbe as in the Lamata Adin Tachlis, there's also the Etzem. So that justifies having the Lamata Adin Tachlis also in Lifnei HaTzimtzum. Now, maybe just to explain a bit more. It says in Samachei, it brings the Moshel HaMagid, that if there's a king who's not interested in anything, like we always say, a king is just Misanig Batzmus, he just is him. But his avodim want him to have a shaykhus with other things. So they come and the Mishabeach for him some kind of narishkeit. And because the Mishabeach it, so he turns towards it, shows interest. But once he shows interest, he comes with this whole etzem. Because when a king shows interest in something, you can never be in a place halfway. There's no such option. So, al derech zeh l'inyoneinu, the king is showing there's a psat tzorech. There's an inyan of Lamata Adin Tachlis. There is an inyan of Gilui. But once there is that, he's there business off. And you could find him there. The Ein L'Tchila is also there. Meaning, there's a usually, let's just unpack this a bit better. The way we look at Yiddishkeit, we see there's two things. There's part of Yiddishkeit which is what we could understand and relate to. And even if we don't relate to it, mamish, we could understand that. We don't understand. It's the Bligvul, there's the Mesiras Nefesh, it's wonderful. We could say Mesiras Nefesh story. I can't understand it, but I could describe it. Fakert, to get him a Spilos and Nefesh, says I am from Bligvul. Amephis, V'chulu. Then there is just the fact I'm eat. That's just the etzem. That's like the dry fact. And that's what won't budge. That's the etzem. What the Rebbe is doing in our Maimer is that the big vul that you have could be harnessed to appreciate the etzem. This etzem doesn't have to remain dry. We could dance with Meidani. The Churah Meidani is that truk in the Zach. Adretz Meidani, Adretz the etzem, it just is. That's going to be a tzarch al-tev long. In the air geht liegen the etzem. In der Ayin geht liegen the menucha. So in the language over here, there's the Tzarchei HaMelech. There's the inyan of Ein L'Tchila, of Lamata Adin Tachlis. In the Lamata Adin Tachlis, in the Tzarchei HaMelech, geht sein. So that explains how we could have this Tzarchei HaMelech. It's very interesting. In the Sikha before this Maimer, Tashin Chav Beis, it's very emotional Sikha. The Rebbe said the Maisa, and the Rebbe was crying, like it was like, every few words the Rebbe was stopping. Story goes of the Achsidische Kush, that the Friedrich Rebbe told this story to the Rebbe, that we have it in Rishimus, the way the Rebbe wrote it down then. that before his bar mitzvah, the Rebbe Rashab gave him a maimer, Tibra Maschil, Morabu Masecha. He gave him the maimer, he told him, this maimer is a Chassidish neshika. He said, what's the story? He said that when he was a child, there was the Poltava Rav was in the house, and the Rebbe goes into all Arichis, that was a small house, a 2-bedroom apartment, and nowadays it's not like that, and everybody has a Akshama, whatever, but it was a small house, and he was learning with the Poltava Rav, and they came into discussion, Al Pinigla, the concept of Bonim, and then Al Pichsidis, what is Bonim, what is children? And then the Poltava Rav told the Rebbe Rashab that he sees the child, the Friedrich Rebbe, you could see from the beauty and the shine on his face for the clarity and the tahara in machshava. You could see that this child was born with tahara in machshava. So the Rebbe Nishmos Eidem was Nis'eirer with a strong rotzen, chayfetz for rotzen, and this is where the Rebbe Mamish started crying, with a chayfetz for rotzen to give nakush for the child. But then he decided that al derech in the Beis Hamikdash, there's the idea of giving karbonis and there's the idea of giving kesef v'zov to the Beis Hamikdash. He decided to change over this hergesh to write the Inyan in Chassidus. And that's when he sat down to write this Maimer Morabu Masech. And this is what he gave the Friedrich Rebbe before his bar mitzvah. So the Rebbe touched us, what's the Inyan of Morabu Masech? Why is that more than a Chassidish kush? Why is that more than a kush? What's that? Just a Chassidish kush. So the Neshikin is the Etzem HaKesher of a father with a son. The Morabu Masecha is the way Sekum Tarop in Ribri. You have Tafki in Daimim, you have more Ribri than in Semech, which is more than in Chai. You have the Ribri and Ivroim, and Tafki in Gilui, over there you bring out the Blikvul. The way the Blikvul came out in Gilui. So, I mean, it would be a chiddush to say it's not connected to this Maimer. The Maimer, it talks about Morabu Masech Havaya. That's mamish the theme over here. The way the Ribui is bringing out, the Blikvul is bringing out the Etzem. So it's a sikha worthwhile checking out. Okay. Yeah.
If I can ask you, the pashtus, just in very simple words. The Indian of the Oitzer is giving the Chayalim a boost, giving them certain preches, right? Preches, nashim, whatever it is, to be able to do their avodah. The Rebbe is emphasizing on that it's the Oitzer is about the circumstances. It's not good to gashmis. No, conditions should be good. Is that not what it means? Like it should be taken. The Oitzer is like without the conditions that we're living in. It's like
no, I hear what you're saying. That's not the way the Rebbe didn't touch Oitzer over here like that. You're right. Usually, when the Rebbe speaks Eitzar Chatev Lano, it means that's also good begashmis. But I don't think it's a stira. That's just taking that same thing to the next level. So it's nicht not that we're going to be able to appreciate it. It's again in unsere gashmis. It's going to penetrate in our day-to-day gashmistic life. But it's the same direction. In the lashon over here in the Hanoch is shamakabel yargish zotev shalei. That's his good. I suppose, yeah. It's like till mamish this is gashmi is good. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Shekayach, Rabbi Bachman, thank you very much for arranging. It's your birthday?
Tonight.
Tonight, Mazel Tov.
Thank you. I appreciate the learning. Thank you. Thank you very much, Rabbi Klyne, for joining.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sehr gesund.
Thank you very much.
Amen. Thank you.